Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of April 27th, 2021 of the Gaston County Board of Commissioners. My name is Tom Kager, and I serve as chairman of the board as well as one of the commissioners for the Gastonia Township. I'd like to welcome our viewers and thank Spectrum Cable and AT&T for making this possible for our citizens. For our television audience, I'd like to present your Gaston County Commissioners, beginning on my far right.
Alan Fraley, Chairman Township.
Good evening, Chad Brown, Riverbend Township.
Bob Hovis, Crowders Mountain Township.
Tracy Philbeck, Dallas Township.
Kim Johnson, Gastonia Township.
I'm Ronnie Worley, South Point Township.
If you would, please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Ronnie Worley, followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Kim Johnson.
If you join me in prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, our need for you is greater today than ever. As we face uncertain times, we need our hope restored. We need to be reminded of your constant and complete healing grace and love for us. As we reach out to you, we pray that you help us to heal the burdens of our neighborhoods, our county, and our country, and our world. Help us to be faithful in prayer and put our hope in you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The commission will take citizen comment for 5 public hearings. Comment will be taken on the following issues. 1, zoning map change, Z21-09. 2, to designate the Charles T. and Beatrice Chafin Stowe House located at 304 South Central Avenue in Belmont as historic property. 3, to authorize the closing of unimproved and unnamed right-of-ways off Woodcrest Drive in the Lark Haven development. 4, to close a portion of an approximately 25-foot right-of-way off Edgewater Drive. And 5, to adopt an outreach plan to establish verifiable percentage goals for participation by minority businesses in the awarding of building construction contracts. Before we begin, let me outline the rules of procedure for the hearing. 1, citizens wishing to make comment will be recognized by the chair and then requested to step to the mic for their comments. Citizens will state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. All questions shall be directed to the chair for response, and the chair shall rule on all points of order during the hearing. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing? Mr. Brown makes a motion. Commissioner Hovis makes a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Item A, the commission will take comment on a public hearing, zoning map change Z21-09, David Ward and Kate Morland applicants. Ms. Penley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is to rezone parcel 190-294 located at 1806 South Point Road in Belmont from the R1 Single Family Limited Zoning District with U.S. Urban Standards and CH Corridor Highway overlays to the C1 Light Commercial Zoning District with U.S. Urban Standards and CH Corridor Highway overlays. The applicants are David Ward and Kate Morland, and the property owner is Margaret Emma Wagner. The total acreage of the property is 9.9 acres. The current use is residential and undeveloped. It has been indicated by the applicant that they wish to operate a veterinary office on site. And if we can refer to the maps, please. As mentioned, the property is located on South Point Road, which is in the southeastern region of the county, just south and east of the city of Belmont, Cramerton, and Gastonia. This is an aerial view of the property. The subject parcel is highlighted in blue. As mentioned, it's currently occupied with a residential single-family dwelling. Otherwise, the acreage is vacant and surrounded mostly by single-family dwelling homes and other residential uses. The zoning map is reflective of the R1 Single Family Limited with the CH Corridor Highway and the U.S. Urban Standards Overlay. It's also abutting the City of Belmont's city limits and zoning district. And zooming out, that zoning is consistent for the Single Family Limited with the two overlay districts. This map shows the adjacent property owners who were notified for the purpose of public hearing and a listing of those property owners. Staff's review of the application finds it to be consistent with the comprehensive land use plan as presented. The planning board met on April 12th, 2021, and after discussion, they voted unanimously 9-0 in favor of recommending approval. Notices were mailed and the property posted in accordance with policy. We did receive one call from the City of Belmont regarding information. The board has been provided with the planning board comments and staff's report. And this concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any comments from the applicants? If you would, please come to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Dave Ward, and we currently live at 2371 Waterview Circle in Gainesville, Georgia, but we recently placed a house under contract here in Gastonia at 1316 Park Lane.
I'm Kate Morland. I'm a third-generation veterinarian that's hoping to follow in my dad's footsteps of owning a practice one day, and found little Belmont not long ago, and we kind of fell in love with the area and hope to bring a veterinary practice a little bit closer. Do we click?
If you'd like, you can remove your mask while you're speaking.
Okay, perfect. So I originally went to undergrad at Clemson University and then finished up with vet school down at SGU in St. George's, down in the Caribbean. It was a great time. I focused on small animal medicine, mostly preventative care, wellness, and surgeries and dentistry, which is kind of the broad overview of what neighborhood veterinary hospitals will give. I tend to focus on cats and dogs, but there's a lot of us out there who do exotics, and one day I'd like to bring a veterinarian to the hospital that would do more exotic care. And Dave?
And I went to Georgia Tech, and I'm a professional beer brewer by trade. If we get this project off the ground and running, one day I hope to also bring a small brewery to the Gaston County area as well.
So far, we've kind of gathered an advisory board of friends and family to kind of help us with this project. My dad being one of them. He's had a couple small animal practices that have done pretty well. His buddy from vet school, Dr. Kurt Hennessy, Jeff Sanford is the University of Georgia's veterinary practice business analyst who has helped us a lot with this project, and Scott Fuller, who's our commercial real estate agent, who's been also really helpful.
So this is a diagram, not to scale, that I put together of about the front 2 acres of the property. Up front, right along the road, you can see a little sign that we have there, and then customer parking, the building being in between the 2 parking lots, and staff parking in the back. One of our big goals for this property is to try to maintain all the established trees. There's a lot of old growth hardwoods in there that we want to keep in this development. And then along the 2 sides, we know that there's some sound issues that people are always concerned about with a vet office. So in addition to soundproofing the building, we want to make sure we have some really good tree and foliage and bush, and potentially even a fence barrier to help minimize disturbance to the neighbors.
There's currently in the site plan an old house. That's where that gray square is. We're planning on getting rid of that old house and using that location as the practice location.
And then here's a preliminary building design that we've drawn up. Up in the front, you can see a lobby and waiting area for clients and their pets. And then we have about 4 exam rooms that we're going to start off with. In the back, we have treatment areas, surgery rooms, offices, and an equipment room. And part of this plan that we're drawing up with our architects is we would like to be able to expand this building in the future so that we can grow with the community and provide more services as the neighborhoods in the area continue to grow.
One of the main concerns that a lot of people have with vet offices is the sound, and are we going to board a whole bunch of animals there? Right now, we are not planning on that at all. We're going to keep it to hospitalized patients indoor only, so we shouldn't have much outside sound at all. We will have doggy relief areas outside, but everything will be leashed and everyone will be fenced in, so hopefully we won't have much noise pollution to the surrounding area.
And the general business plan is we're going to start this off as a single doctor practice with just Kate. And then as our clientele grows, we'll continue to add. We already have a second doctor in mind who does specialize in exotics, so we can bring that care to the neighborhood and offer those services. Again, minimal boarding, big architectural focus on soundproofing. And the reason that we really like this property, there's a lot of growth on that peninsula, and the AVMA considers 1 doctor per 2,000 households to be a shortage, and anything greater than that to be a severe shortage. And a 10-minute drive time from that address, there's 11,000 households and only 3 full-time doctors. So it's a severe shortage of vets, and we think that we could really help this community by bringing those services to the area. That's it. You have anything else to say?
That's it?
Is that it?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Any citizen comment at this time? Okay, yes, sir, both of you? Okay. Make your way to the podium, please, and state your name and address. You can both go on up there. I'm sure it won't be too long. Good evening.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? How's everybody? My name's Corey Edwards. My wife and I, Karma, live at the property adjacent at 1800 South Point Road. When we first got the notice in the mail, we were like, oh my gosh, what's coming next to us? Is it going to be a strip mall or something like that? You know, we just recently moved there about 3 years ago, and for me, it's a dream property and lots of trees and everything like that. So I'm really pleased to hear that they're going to keep, hopefully, the tree line that's next to our property. My wife may be a little upset that there's a vet going next door because I may be over there peeking a little bit to check out the animals. So, but the biggest question we have was, is the entrance into the property are they going to take part of our land to kind of make a turn into the property? And also, how many trees will be left on that tree line between our property and the new property?
Ms. Penley, can you help us with that?
Yes, sir. If I understand correctly, one of the concerns was if they would be encroaching on your property or taking some of your property as part of their driveway improvement, and the answer to that would be no. They could not take any of your property as a result of a driveway permit or to gain as a use of their own property. As for if the tree line will remain, that obviously would come up within the commercial site plan process if approved. The applicant stated that they would like to leave as many, remaining natural vegetation as possible, which we encourage most property owners to do. And I believe with this particular use and in this particular zoning district, is either a type C or type D buffer, which is a pretty decent buffer in that zoning district. Also keep in mind, too, that we have the U.S. overlay district, which is going to be a little bit more stringent if approved for this use as well. So I can't definitively say or answer if that tree line would necessarily stay. That would be something that would be considered in the commercial site plan review process, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name's Rick Fulp, and I live on South Forest Lane. It's lot 7, I think it was, on the map. And I'm at the very bottom of that hill. And I know Mr. Ward and Ms. Morland mentioned that right now it's only 1 or 2 acres involved with the building, but they did say they were interested in later on in extending on back in the property. Well, there's a very steep hill, and there's woods and all right now to help stop the water runoff and such. And everybody knows water runs downhill, and I'm at the very bottom of the hill. And I've already got issues with it coming down South Point Road now through neighbors' backyards and such. And the sediment has really built up my second lot. I own 2 lots there. And my question was, if it extends on down further, what's going to happen with the water, or what plans are made for that? Because that's county property, the water wouldn't be handled by the city or anything at this time. So that's my real concern as far as flooding, if it extends on down further, down the property lines that's being discussed at this moment.
Sarah, do you have a response?
Yes, sir. Any type of development of the property, whether commercial or residential, would be reviewed by other agencies such as erosion control. They would have to submit those plans, and those would have to be approved through the regular permitting process. So all of those key components would be in place if approved through the commercial site plan review and permitting. And that would be the case if it were a commercial business or a residential development. The same would apply.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the board? Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My recollection of number of trips on South Point Road, somewhere around 14,000 trips a day, I think, on South Point Road. So how much do you think that your office would generate what number of trips would you say in and out of your office a day would be?
Yeah, so we're going to be a smaller office, not a really big practice. So probably with maximum capacity, years down the road, we'd probably max out around 4 vets. With a staff that size, probably looking around 15 employees, including the entire staff. And then at most, with the property and building potential, I think 5, maybe 6 exam rooms. So 6, 7 cars at a time. They're maxed out. Usually not maxed out all the time, as much as I would like it to be. But I think that it'll be minimal change as far as the overall traffic flow for the area. It won't be too bad. Maybe 5 or 6 cars at a time.
So over the course of a day, 5 or 6 cars at a time. But the course of a day, would that be 40 to 50 trips maybe a day in and out of there?
Probably close to that, 40 to 50 trips a day.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question would be for Sarah. Back with Mr. Phelps' question, they would have to keep that tree line in consistency all the way around the property, correct? As that would, if it were to move back into the property, I mean, it would be consistent, not just now. That would still be in place for the whole property.
They have to maintain a buffer between commercial and residential districts if that's helpful. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure Mr. Phelps understood that as well, and maybe that could help understand his question.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we also have another resident that would like to speak.
Good evening. If you would, state your name and address, please.
Joe Lassiter, 4084 Tucker Road. We butt up to the very tail end of the land that they're talking about. We've been there about a year, a couple months. We moved there to kind of get out of the city a little bit. I'm not trying to knock what they're trying to do, but say they pass it and then they decide to change their mind and they don't want to do it. Okay, now we're looking at some other business coming in there. You know, we bought that property to raise our kids and hopefully be there for a while. At the very back, it's not very wide. I mean, I don't know how much more you can do back there and still have a buffer. Some of the trees along the line now are dead and could be falling at any time. So I don't know how you're going to come in and keep a buffer there when some of them are going to have to come down in the next year or so. It's a big concern. You know, that's like I said, that's the reason we moved down here, to get out of the city a little bit, or not be crammed up on top of each other. My house is more at the back of the property line, So I don't have much behind me and at the end of my property line. So that is a big concern for us. My neighbor, he's not here, he's handicapped, he can't get out much, but he's been there 30, 45 years, 40-something years, I think he said. You know, it's a big concern with him too. He's at the back of his property line as well. And I believe he lives right at the top of the big hill. So, just a concern we have, and then, like I said, if they end up passing it and then they change their mind, then what do we have going in there next? You know, I moved my kids out there for a reason, you know. So, just, you know, I'd like for it to keep in mind that, you know, for whatever it weighs, I mean. So,
All right, thank you, sir.
thank you.
Any other questions from the board? If there are no additional comments, I'll accept a motion to close this public hearing. Motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion? All those in favor? Before we proceed to the vote, I'll ask County Attorney to provide comments. Mr. Sink, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The recommendation of the Gaston County Planning Board was a unanimous approval to recommend the project to go forward to you all. The consistency statement, if I may read it, is as follows. The proposed rezoning is in the Suburban Development Future Land Use Plan. Suburban development consists of significant single-family residential areas that exist around commercial pockets representing a standard suburban center. The use going from R1 to C1 will make the subject parcel commercial in nature, which is consistent with the suburban development designation, and the overlay districts will also ensure a higher quality of standards. Thank you.
All right, I'll accept a motion to accept the Planning Board's recommendation. Mr. Brown makes the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Johnson seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item B, the commission will take comment on public hearing to designate the Charles T. and Beatrice Chafin Stowe House located at 304 South Central Avenue in Belmont as a historic property pursuant to Part 4, Chapter 160D of the General Statutes of North Carolina. Ms. Janie Mendoza, Building and Development Services Long Range Planner, will provide a brief overview. Ms. Mendoza, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. This request is to designate the Chafin Stowe House as a local historic landmark. The Stowe House is located at 304 South Central in Belmont. It sits at the intersection of South Central Avenue and Keener Boulevard and is diagonally across from the Stowe Manor. The house is 3,341 square feet and sits on 1.98 acres of land. It is currently owned by Charles Hare and Kristen Moyer. The landmark report was prepared by Jason Harp with Richard Grubb and Associates. The report was shared with the State Preservation Office for review and comments, and their comments were included in the final report. This request was presented to the City of Belmont's Council, and it was unanimously supported on March 1st. The house was constructed between 1932 and 1935 and remains on its original location. It retains a very high level of integrity with regard to design, materials, and workmanship. The house possesses characteristic features of the Tudor Revival style. These characteristics can be seen in the original metal casement windows with the multi-pane glazing and rounded arch doors and doorways. I'd like to recognize the chairman of our Historic Preservation Commission, Mr. John Russell, to provide information about the designation process.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thank you, first of all, for having us. I'm John Russell. I'm chairman of the County Historic Preservation Commission. Certainly happy to take any questions that you have, but also wanted to provide a little bit of background for you about how we got here and the designation process. Before I do that, I did want to just comment on the report itself. In order to come before you or to bring a property to you for historic designation, the County Commission has to find that it meets historic, architectural or archaeological significance. So we do an investigation. This property actually has 2 of those 3. The architectural significance is impressive. The Tudor photographs that you have and that you've seen is a really high quality, and it's one of the unique Tudor houses that's still left in Belmont. The report has a great history of Charles T. Stowe and his association with Belmont Hosiery Mill. His personal history is really fascinating. He dropped out of Davidson College in 1928 and then sort of almost on his own was able to lead Belmont Hosiery through the Depression, maintaining not only the mill, its impact on the town, but also countless jobs during that difficult time. So real impressive individual history that he had before an untimely early death. We never come to you unless we've got the full support of the property owners. So it is not the process of our commission to designate property unless the property owners support that and want that. It was a little tricky in this case because the designation started with one set of owners, the Gads. The house was sold during the process. And so Charles Hare and Kristen Moyer are the new owners. We've talked with them. They were actually really fascinated to hear about the process, hear about the history, and they're very supportive as well. Jason Harp, who prepared the report, is well known to Gaston County. He's longtime director of the Lincoln County Historic Museum. So he knows our county well, knows the town well, and I think the report reflects that. So the local preservation board is fully supportive. We did go to Belmont. We have to present both to the town and to the commissioners in order to have the property designated as historic. The city voted unanimously to approve it, and we would ask you all to do the same. So we do appreciate your continued support of the Historic Preservation Commission and our work generally, as well as hearing us tonight. I'd be happy to take questions about the process or about this report.
Thank you, sir. Are there any citizens wishing to make comment? Yes, ma'am. If you would go to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Moyer, and I live at 304 South Central Avenue. My husband, Charles Hare, and I, along with our children, are thrilled to be the newest caretakers of Charles and Beatrice Stowe's house. When this house went on the market last year, we contacted our real estate agent and made an offer without seeing the property. We just knew it was something special. And when we finally got a chance to see it, it really exceeded our expectations. We're very grateful to Doug and Nancy Gadd for starting the historic designation process. And we're really just drawn to the house because of its charm and history. We love the pine flooring, the textured plaster walls, the ornate doorknobs, deep windowsills, and the beautiful wood molding. There are 4 unique, beautiful fireplaces in the home, which are just so lovely. We take the responsibility of caring for and preserving this home very seriously, and we will do our best to safeguard its architectural and cultural integrity. We hope that the Commission will approve the application for the home to become a historic landmark. As new members of Gaston County, we look forward to learning more about the history of this house and the surrounding community, and we thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions from the Board of Commissioners? If there are no additional comments, I'll accept the motion to close this public hearing. Mr. Hovis makes the motion. Commissioner Fraley makes the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Public hearing is closed. Now, is there a motion to approve? Mr. Hovis makes the motion. Mr. Worley makes the second. Any discussion? Or do you have a question?
No, I was going to make the motion. Being
Okay.
it's in the South Point Township,
I can
I was
only
going
look
to.
one way. Well, when I kind of thought you were pointing, but I thought maybe you were just raising
all
your
good.
finger. Motion by Mr. Hovis, second by Mr. Worley. Discussion. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, folks. Item C, the commission will take comment on public hearing 2, authorize the closing of unimproved and unnamed right-of-ways off Woodcrest Drive in the Larkhaven development in Gastonia Township. Ms. Courtney Rogers, Deputy County Attorney, will provide a brief overview, and then we will ask for citizen comment. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This public hearing is to authorize the closing of unimproved and unnamed right-of-ways off Woodcrest Drive in the Lark Haven development in the Gastonia Township. Petitioners are Nicholas and Danieletta Miller, property owners of several unimproved and unnamed parcels having an address of 000 Woodcrest Drive in the Lark Haven development in Gastonia. We can refer to the maps at this time. I think this map gives you all the best overview of what is occurring here. There, as I mentioned, petitioners wish to close the portion of unnamed right-of-ways in what will be formally called the Lark Haven development on Woodcrest Drive in order to combine parcels. As you can see in the tan on this map, the petitioners own a number of parcels there, and in order to combine them, have to close what is basically a paper road at this time. Adjacent property owners were notified by certified and first-class mail of this public hearing. Signage of the public hearing was posted in the immediate area, and notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Gazette for 3 consecutive weeks. These right-of-ways are not controlled or maintained by the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and petitioners believe in good faith that closing these right-of-ways will not cause hardship or inconvenience to any property owner, and no person or entity owning property adjoining these parcels will be deprived of either ingress or egress from their property. That concludes staff presentation.
Any citizens wishing to make comment? Questions of the board? Mr. Hovis.
In examining this, and correct me if I'm incorrect, Ms. Rogers, the hashed portion of this road is unimproved.
Correct.
If you'll notice the other end of the road where it is open, there is a turnaround on the end of Woodcrest Drive.
Correct.
There's a circle, so emergency vehicles and stuff like that can turn. I noticed where we're closing this portion, it's just gonna dead end there at that plot number. I think it's tax ID number 144390. It just dead ends. I wonder if the owners of this property would take that into consideration and change the dedication of what was there and create a cul-de-sac so that people coming down this way have an opportunity to turn around and exit. School buses, trash trucks, anything else in the future, so that we don't find ourselves with just a dead end, people having to back up the street. That's just an observation. Whenever we do one of these, you think about entrance and egress.
Sure.
You go back and look at the back end of the other parcel, it kind of dead ended into another piece of property that wasn't developed, this red line. But the intent of all of these normally is to have a way to in and out, and I would just think that would be a good suggestion.
Noted. Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is, closing these right-of-ways is not going to individually landlock anybody?
No.
And is that a dirt road now?
It's wooded, unimproved. It's really nothing.
Like a path.
It was just a survey road.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hovis, is there, would you like to recommend to the staff to incorporate your thoughts on this in the future when this comes up?
My motion for this consolidation would be to include the addition of a cul-de-sac where this property ends to allow turnarounds.
So, well, first, are there any other questions of the board? If there are no other comments,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Can we do that? I mean, or is that something the petitioner would bring forward
Voluntarily?
voluntarily?
Which map are you looking at? I know, but is it
It's the one that you were referring to, the tan.
the tan?
Yes.
Are you talking about the cul-de-sac that's at the very end to the far right?
That one's still there. That one
Correct.
doesn't change.
Correct.
I'm saying there should be one exactly like it at the end of this dedication of right-of-way.
So what's going to happen, though, is when this paper road is closed, all of those tan parcels are going to be combined into one. They're creating a new development in there. So I'm probably going to make an assumption here for them, and my understanding is that petitioners were going to be here and present, and they may want to come forward and be able to answer to this, but I believe other roads will be created once this development is created. So the point of closing these roads at this point is so that they can combine parcels and create this development. Correct.
Re-subdivide. Okay.
Correct.
That changes
Originally, they
it.
said turn it into one parcel. I didn't know what they were gonna do.
In order to create the subdivision, I'm sorry, I thought I said that, to create this, what will be the Lark Haven subdivision. Yes, sir.
And I'm just saying, we just definitely don't wanna create. a-
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
All right, a motion to close the public hearing.
So,
Yes, sir.
Do you all want to speak?
I think they want to comment.
Good evening. If you would, give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Danieletta Miller. Currently, we're at 6531 Rock Lake Drive in Charlotte. We are the owners of that land now. We don't actually plan on making it into a development. We bought it for our family, and it would just be our family land. It won't be actually subdivided into any other parcels. It would just be one for our family to live on. So I know you were talking about that turnaround. There's one that will be at the very front on the Superior Stainless Road that leads to where you will turn into our opening. But that all land will be, we've only cleared 4 acres, and the rest of it will stay wooded for our family.
I understand, but my comment was, if you look, I guess this is basically southwest on Woodcrest Drive. The other, the end, the top part has a turnaround, has a cul-de-sac. When we remove this, there is no cul-de-sac, and you see there was crossover for the other road. All I'm saying is asking you to be so kind as to give a cul-de-sac easement at the end of this upon removing this dedication so that one could be put there. It's deeded. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I'm definitely open to doing that. I just want to make sure I know exactly where on the map,
Would you like for me to come down there?
if you don't
I'll be
mind.
more than happy to.
Thank you.
But this would have to be voluntary, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it's in keeping with what we normally do in terms of entrance and egress into subdivision.
And Mr. Commissioner, if I could add, if this paper road is closed, they will become the owners to the middle of the property line and owning all of this property. That will all become their property. So what they build and do with that property, I mean, they'll be able to utilize this entire space in any way that they deem fit.
And in doing that, they've got to resurvey and create a new plat. I'm asking for them too, as an action of us taking this action, is to put a cul-de-sac like you see right there, right here. See this right here? Right here. So if someone comes down this road, they don't have to back up. An emergency vehicle could turn around in the cul-de-sac. And then it would be incumbent upon, I'm not asking you to do the improvement. I'm just saying to give the right-of-way for the cul-de-sac. Deed it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think under the subdivision regulations I can make them do that.
Okay, I'm just saying that, you know, it makes, that's how we get into these situations when we don't have proper entrance and egress into subdivision. That's just a suggestion.
All right, are there any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion to close this public hearing.
So move.
Made by Mr. Philbeck, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Now, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Mr. Worley. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Item D, the commission will take comment on public hearing to close a portion of an approximate 25-foot right-of-way off Edgewater Drive in the South Point Township. Again, Ms. Rogers, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a public hearing to authorize the closing of an approximately 25-foot easement or unnamed road off Edgewater Drive in the South Point Township. Petitioners are Brian and Melanie Elliott here this evening, in case you have any questions for them. They're owners of the parcel 191763, having an address of 856 Edgewater Drive in Belmont. We can refer to the maps at this time. I think this map gives you all the best picture of what exactly they are trying to do here. They're wishing to close the portion that you can see sort of X'd off, which is really the grass portion off the edge of the driveway there. When the lot was originally subdivided, driveway was labeled as a road, but the road was never given a name, never actually turned into a road, but is instead really a common driveway that the petitioners and the neighbors share and maintain. The closing of this portion does not impact the ingress or egress for any of the adjoining property owners. The driveways are still intact and folks have the ability to get in and out. Really, the petitioners here just want to be able to build a garage on their property, and the only way they can do that is to have this portion of this paper road closed. Again, adjacent property owners were notified by certified and first-class mail. Signage was posted, and advertisement was run in the Gazette for 3 consecutive weeks. This easement is not controlled or maintained by the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and petitioners believe in good faith that closing this approximately 25-foot easement will not cause hardship or inconvenience to any property owner or person or entity owning property that is adjoining theirs. That concludes staff presentation.
Thank you. Any citizen wishing to make comment? Questions of the board? I'll accept a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Worley makes the motion. Ms. Johnson makes the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Now I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion also, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Worley makes the motion. Mr. Brown makes the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Final item of the planning hearing. The commission will take comment to adopt an outreach plan and to establish verifiable percentage goals for participation by minority businesses in the awarding of building construction contracts pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-128.2. And Mr. Sink has the floor to explain.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is simply a policy update as is part of our wholesale policy review for the county led by our office. Quick thanks to Pearl Burris Floyd, Dr. Eagle, Courtney, Marcy. We are keeping, at least to recommend to you all, to adopt an up-to-date resolution and coinciding 5-page guidelines, the same verifiable percentage goal, which is 10%, as if you reference back to the state statute, the state has a 10% goal as well. And that is, everybody talks about a $300,000 threshold for this, but when you get into it, if you get state funds granted to you for a local public project, that threshold's actually $100,000. So just so you know, there's 2 thresholds, $100,000, $300,000, and what you'll see at the end of the regulations, the guidelines, is that we are naming under Ray, under Dan Ziem, a minority business project coordinator, which we've never had before. So, you know, since this policy in the early 90s was created, their resolution, I should say, because that's what it specifically was, state law has changed. And we just need to, we needed to encompass more items within our resolution coinciding guidelines to align with that state law. And that's all this is. Last thing, if I may, the individual under Dr. Eagle, under Ray, who works with them, Dan Ziem's team, whoever they designate as that coordinator, would come to y'all once a year and just give you an update as to how we're doing on that goal. Thank you.
Dr. Eagle, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you, Chairman. I believe the attorney covered it. We're evaluating current staff workloads so that we can accommodate this work within existing resources.
All right, thank you. Citizens wishing to make comment? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Carl A. Harris, Sr. I live at 319 North Highland Street. And I'm sorry, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate you. Let me share the mic here with you. Mr. Singh, some of the questions I had you answer them. I did have a few other questions. On the general statutes 143-12-8-2, following the state guidelines for the dollar amount, I know you had a range from 100 to 100,000 to 300,000. Will that slide depending on the project?
So the only thing that would slide, and that would be up to this board, is the percentage that goes into the actual resolution that's passed in the coinciding guidelines. In other words, boards of commissioners can have greater than, less than 10%. When you look across the state at the whole map is kind of your, from county to county, what it is. But it doesn't mean that that can't be more than that, so to speak. That'd be up to the commission for that. But as far as the $100,000 threshold and 300,000, that's just straight from state statute.
Okay. Another question: Will when federal dollars are used, will the same goal be implied if you use federal dollars mixed in with your county dollars?
So with the federal dollars, you're going to have a lot of the same goals, but this actual resolution has to do with local dollars and state dollars that go into those local public building projects. Yes, sir.
Okay. Another question: will the goals pertain to goods, services, A&E firms, procurement, anything that's been procured by the county?
Anything that is part, to fully answer your question, anything that is part of the actual building and or repair contract, and it's 10% of that overall individual project.
Okay. Another question: what criteria will be used to establish that was used to establish the MWBE goal?
Right. So the definition is really specific in state law, and so when we were working with our internal auditor on that, we thought about actually expanding who would be considered a minority. But when we talked to the the feds, for lack of a better way to say it, they said, look, that's going to be very hard to document, prove. So right now, the definition as it currently stands today is a 51% or more owned minority business, and minority is defined as black, female. There's 5 prongs, and I'd have to look at it exactly, but it's in there. Black, female, I think it's Asia Pacific. Does not say Jamaica. It actually says from origins in Africa. And so that's the thrust of it.
Okay. Will the goal be specific to a project or an overall goal?
Both, actually. So this is 10% for every building or repair project that we take on as a county. And again, if it's only local dollars, you're looking at the $300,000 threshold. If it's state granted, it's like the state's saying, okay, we've given you state funds on this, threshold's lowered to $100,000, and that's when that 10% verifiable goal is triggered. But yes, for every single building project, and then our new coordinator, who they designate as the outreach coordinator, has to make good faith efforts to connect with those minority businesses in the county. And we've actually included 2, it's not limited to this, but we've included 2 organizations. One is Pat Mumford's new business association, I know it just got renamed. And then there is also the U.S. Small Business Administration, which, and there's quite helpfully a minority wing to that here as well.
Okay. Another question: how would the process comply to the Carson case that's indicated that a city does not require the general contractor to subcontract portion of the work to minority MWBE firms?
It's a good question. I think when you get into the nitty-gritty on that, you're looking at, it is a 10% verifiable goal. So the thrust here is good faith. And we as a county and our employees under Dr. Eagle have to make good faith efforts. In other words, what is reasonable, what is actually going to help in reaching out to minority businesses who are interested. And we've got a list already. So that's the that's the answer. And, you know, we've been working with our internal auditors. Okay, well, how do you make sure that you're reaching that 10% goal? I haven't identified any penalty for not reaching that goal. It's a good faith goal, as you'll see in the state statute, but we have really tried to bulk up the guidelines in that 5-page document. And it was almost a copy and paste from the Carolina School of Government, and then we bulked that up with the Minority Business Outreach Coordinator. So that's hopefully gives some teeth to what we had formally in a 1-page document.
Okay. Last question. How would a goal be narrowly tailored to remedy any effects of discrimination?
Again, it goes back to if there's no good faith, then it's not narrowly tailored. So you have to have that good faith effort by the county, and so that's on us to verify. And that's where the annual report comes in from our coordinator to this board in a public forum. How you doing? What are you doing? Tell us the percentages, who's gotten what. So that'll come out every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Are there any other citizens wishing to make comment? Questions of the board? Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess one question I'll ask for the manager and Mr. Zime. Is it possible that we could put together a database to where these people can actually maybe go to the website of the county and say, hey, I want to be part of what his business may be? That way we have a third party other than the Mumford and the U.S., to where we can just have local businesses that we know, and they can qualify them. And then, you know, it's just kind of a pre-bid process, I know, but not doing it at the exact time that they're bidding on it, but just have them in a database where we have those availability, kind of where we can just say, hey, this is where we're at.
Yes, we can, Mr. Brown. That's a part of implementing the outreach plan. And we can certify by different services provided folks that would be candidates to participate in the program. So yes, is the short answer.
I think if we really put that together in a nice presentation, it would enhance the way we get people, and especially in the minority class. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Philbeck?
I have a question for the county attorney. I didn't understand the last question. Did you say that basically we would police ourselves on the 10%?
Well, we have to. We have an obligation to police ourselves, and then if somebody notices a violation, there's obviously legal remedies that they can choose to pursue, but
Okay.
it's a 10% verifiable
okay.
goal. When he got into the narrative, sorry.
Here's my question, because I think you have to have a different some other safeguard. I don't think it's wise to check. I'm assuming when we do the audit that for public transparency, the auditor can look at this, who's a third party, and say, yes, this is the percentage you're at or not. I don't think we should do that. Am I?
The internal auditor has worked with us every step of the way.
But is this something they will do?
Oh, this was, yes.
It will become a part of his audit
Okay,
plan.
so when we get our audit report, I'll be able to look in that audit report and it'll say, okay, this is the percentage we've got, we've audited this and things.
That's correct, if I could jump in.
Okay.
It will become a part of the regular program for our auditors. And as we implement, there'll be reporting from the coordinator to the audit staff. So we will keep tabs project by project leading up to the report to you all, but the auditor will be the third party that certifies the actual performance.
Okay. It just, to me, almost made it mute if you don't have a third party checking. And I just think for public transparency, that's a better way.
If I could, just by way of clarification, I'm speaking about our internal auditor that's now on staff, not our financial auditor.
Gotcha.
That's the external person. Right.
But as long as that's something that is audited and we can get a report on, and we're not reporting it ourselves per se, I think leads legitimacy. To me, it's not legitimate if we're not doing that.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, it's just a policy that nobody's looking at. You get where I'm going?
I do, and
Okay.
I'll tell you one last thing, if I may, in 10 seconds or less. It was actually the internal auditor's idea to have that coordinator in place in the first place so that that documentation can happen.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I need a motion to close the public hearing by Mr. Philbeck,
Yep.
second by Mr. Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Now, motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Brown makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Hovis makes the, Mr. Philbeck
That's
made the
fine, yeah.
motion. Mr. Hovis made the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. It is unanimous. That concludes tonight's public hearing. We'll get right to the business agenda. Are there any revisions or items to be pulled from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the business agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Philbeck, second by Mr. Hovis. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next item is citizen recognition. A portion of the board's agenda is set aside for the purpose of allowing citizens an opportunity to offer comments and suggestions. This comment period is not intended to require
Mr.
the
Chairman,
commission.
we need to approve the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Thank you,
as
sir.
presented in the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
All right, my apologies.
And
Motion
Mr.
by
Hovis made the second.
Philbeck, Mr. Hovis made the second, Mr. Brown made the second.
Fraley.
Mr. Fraley made the second.
Somebody did down here.
We're passing it all the way
Fraley,
down to the end.
Fraley.
There's nobody else beyond Allen, so.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
All right. Questions requiring a response shall be answered as soon as possible through the county manager's office. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. As I call your name, if you would, please step to the podium, state your name and address. And the first signed up is Miss Lydia McCaskill. Good evening.
So y'all, yesterday was my last official day of the semester. I'm super excited because that means I can dedicate more time to research and expose the corruptness happening in this county and in which some members on this board have their dirty little hands in. First of all, Chad, since you don't know what systematic racism is, I will explain how this board specifically acts in systematic racism. Well, aside from failing to, bye Tracy, aside from, he can't even stand to listen to an educated black woman speak. Aside from failing to remove the racist statue. So there have been several deputy county managers over the past few years. This is crazy to me because through my research, I learned that there is a vet of over 20 years in the county office, but for some reason, he has continually looked over for the position to the extent that people have been brought in from other states for the position. Not to my surprise, he is a black man. That, Chad, is systematic racism. What other reason would a man be continually looked over for even after obtaining a doctorate degree for a position that he has well deserved in his 20-plus year career with this county? Do you get how that's systematic and institutional racism? Or will you go to Facebook Live to spew your lies and divisive rhetoric again about how systematic racism and institutional racism isn't a thing? Okay, well, Tracy left, but it was fancy seeing him here. But I knew he would be here despite people actually believing that he would resign or that the board would force him off, because I know why. It's because this board doesn't have the strength or the balls to stand up to him and reprimand him for his ludicrous and downright ignorant actions. Anyways, aside from several recordings I have received of Tracy defaming my name, proving that he is psychotic and a white supremacist and is obsessed with this little educated colored girl, I will wait till the next meeting to address that. We have bigger fish to fry. I know you saw the last meeting, Tracy, wherever you are. I wanted to just tell him that the Panthers are here, but he isn't here. So I'll just skip on over to the bigger fish to fry, which is the current scandal that Tracy is in. To be honest, I could care less what he does on his free time. It is not my place to pass judgment on what you guys do outside of this political body. Although him himself are super judgy, touting a Bible like he's a devout Christian, that's neither here nor there. You or your ancestors, you and your ancestors both, have used religion to push your hateful ways for centuries. However, if Tracy did in fact use county taxpayer funds, then that is an issue. Also, if he used the over $300,000 in PPP loans that he said was for the purpose of payroll toward a lifestyle of paying strippers and massage therapists, then that's an issue. Imagine that, little old Tracy taking advantage of government funds after he spread divisive rhetoric about people taking advantage of social programs. Hey, Tracy, did you know that the PPP loan program is a social program like socialism, the very thing that you preach against? So the board isn't going to reprimand you. You have your hand around their necks.
Ms. McGill, that's it. Please.
They won't listen to the citizens. They would rather listen to you, and I will leave. My time is up. I'll see you next week, Tracy. I'm sorry, in 2 weeks. I'll be back researching every single day to find more dirt on you and Tad. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Paul Bonham again. Welcome back.
Esteemed commissioners, I'm sorry. Gaston is better than that. When I departed last week, and I restate that I'm happy to offer a reward program to help with the meter tampering and encourage people to turn in folks who are meter tampering, happy to be a part of that. I'd like to continue that effort. But when I left this building, I was accosted by Lydia and the other group of people that were out there. And had it not been for one of our dedicated deputies in a vehicle, I don't know what would have happened, because they came shouting threats, attempting to engage. And of course, I have no pepper spray or anything on me because I came in through the metal detectors. I carry it with me. I've had to use it as a landlord, unfortunately, and I sure wished I'd had it then. But I didn't. But fortunately, one of our deputies was there, and I asked to come into the car, and she allowed me in, and then she took me to my vehicle. And I then, at that point, called the county sheriff's office and let them know that our commissioners were in danger, because if they're going to get a common person like me, they're coming for all of us. You know, this is a county that's been dedicated to equality, to opportunity. I've made it my home. You've made it your home. I don't know what the solution is here, but we're going to have to do something where people have the ability to come to a meeting and leave safely without feeling threatened. I'm concerned tonight for your safety, and you know, I'm open to the community of what we can do, because what's happening around this country is not what we want in Gaston County. We don't want to see people tearing up businesses. We want to build businesses. We don't want to see people accosting folks on the public grounds. Unfortunately, there's film footage of it, of what was happening. We want this to be a safe place for every person, of every color, of every creed, of every religion. That's what we're about in this county. And that's what the religion of Christianity that this nation was based on teaches, the Judeo-Christian value, to love your neighbor as you love yourself, to treat others as you would like to be treated. And that's the value of every person sitting here, and I believe the value of every person seated in the audience. So I, again, will offer my help, my funds. I've built a business here. I'm happy to be part of the solution. And again, I'm sorry, Gaston County is better than what you're hearing each week. And I bless each one of you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Have a great evening. Next up, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Brown made the motion. Mr. Hovis made the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. Nothing pulled from the agenda. Next item up would be appointments, and I will start with Commissioner Fraley.
I have two, Mr. Chairman. Both reappointments, Family Advisory Board, Pastor Wavy Williams, Travel and Tourism, Jim Hoffman.
I'll second those.
Okay, second by Mr. Philbeck. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. Mr. Brown?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman, but I do have one full board in case you want me to do that one.
We'll come back to you. Mr. Hovis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 reappointments. I'll read those and we can do them all as one action. To the Economic Development Commission, Mr. Jeff Booker, or Dr. Jeff Booker. To the Family Advisory Board, Sarah Kapowski. And to the Family Advisory Board, Jacob Tripp G. Horde III.
I'll second those as well, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Philbeck. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is once again unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
I'm going to hold off on my appointments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
I've got an appointment to the Community Child Protection Team. It's Dr. Melinda Lowry.
I'll
And-
second. Oh, I'm sorry.
And I have one more reappointment to the Family Advisory Board, Anita Sanders.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Commissioner Worley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One to the Family Advisory Board, Ms. Theresa T. Richardson. And I'd offer that as for reappointment, and I'll make that motion.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. I'd like to appoint Craig Collins to the Family Advisory Board.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fraley. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. It is unanimous, and there's a application, once again, from Dr. Stephen Tracy, who I think served for many years at one point on the QNRC, and I'll make that motion.
I'll make second.
Second by Mr. Philbeck. Discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Brings us to Commissioner Committee reports.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 points of interest I'd like to share with the board and the public. Currently, the steel erection for the new urgent care tower at the Caramont site on Court Drive is all in place. This is the new urgent care rooms that will be directly above the Advanced Surgical Center at Caramont. So that project's moving on very nicely, very much on time. Clearing has also begun at the what we call Site 2, because it's yet to be named, for Caramont. They're on I-85 North, next to Belmont Abbey College. I also had the opportunity and the honor of representing the Board of County Commissioners, along with several other commissioners here, at the ribbon cutting for the Animal Care and Enforcement location on Wren Drive. This is our new project that was many years in the making, and it was greatly received, and I think everybody in the public's totally wowed by that facility. It's no comparison to the dog lot that we had in the past. It's wonderful. Also, the third item I want to bring to everybody's attention, I had the opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting for Stinger Park in Bessemer City. This is a park that had been envisioned in Bessemer for many years. The Board of County Commissioners, through Joe Carpenter's action with the township grant and the money that came from the Caramont lease negotiations, was able to purchase that 40 acres just northeast of Bessemer City Primary and Bessemer City Central elementary schools there in Bessemer City. The ribbon breaking was done, site clearing was going on, and this project's greatly funded by USDA. It's going to total over $9 million project. These fields will not just be your average field where somebody digs up some dirt and throws out some grass seed. These will be professionally sodded, professionally irrigated. This is going to be a park like no other in Gaston County. I'm very proud to know that my community in the Crowders Mountain Township has invested in the youth and the quality of life in Gaston County to such a degree. This is probably one of the largest capital undertakings for recreational development in Gaston County in some years. Very proud to be a part of that. And under that same comment, Mr. Chair, some of you may know and some of you may not know, but Thursday of this week I'll be traveling to Chapel Hill. I will be undergoing evaluation. I have a tumor in my upper left jaw that's called amelia-blastoma. It is a non-malignant, but a very aggressive and crazy tumor. It actually eats bone. A portion of my bone has already been eroded on my top palate. I will be going through their evaluation and determining what my options are in terms of reconstructive efforts. I will probably be out of pocket once they find me a room and a date for probably at least 90 days. The surgery's up to 17 hours, just to let you know. And to much of your joy, my mouth will be wired shut for 8 weeks. So I say that in jest, but at the same time, I'm very confident that UNC has the capabilities and the faculties to put Bob back together again. And despite my wife's effort to create a GoFundMe page to get them not to teach me how to talk again once this is over, I plan on meeting that as well. But I share that with all of you and the public so people will know what's going on with Bob Hovis. But I'm not going away. I'm going to be around, so it's going to take a lot more than a little melioblastoma to shut me up. But thank you.
We'll be praying for you, Bob.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hovis. Mr. Philbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to give an update on the homeless task force. We'll actually be meeting in May. I actually have a meeting with Dr. Eagle to go over some of the structure of that and looking forward to hopefully making a difference in that area. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. Thank you, and my prayers as well, Mr. Hovis.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Johnson.
No reports at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Worley? All right. County Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few brief comments to share with you related to the budget process. Beginning this Friday, which is April the 30th, you'll start receiving written reports on the status of the budget. We're in the process of making reductions and balancing, working toward the recommendation. We do have the commitment baked in that we talked about last year relative to balancing needs with resources and looking specifically at eliminating the appropriation of fund balance to balance the operating budget. So we're working toward that with lots of momentum. I feel really good about where we stand with the process. So I will be sending you a weekly written update on the budget, and then what I would like to do is meet with you in pairs to reaffirm your priorities, to test some assumptions as we lead toward the recommended budget, so there are no surprises, and I make sure that I understand your priorities since it has been a bit of time since we had those discussions. Before recommendation, I would like to do that, and then we are currently scheduled for the recommended budget presentation to be delivered to you on May the 25th. Very much like the process we utilized last year, after the recommended budget is delivered to you all and it becomes your budget to work through and make potential adjustments for, we will have a work session, much like we did last year, to have those very detailed conversations on various elements of the budget leading to adoption. And currently we're scheduled for an early June adoption. You know, by state law, we have to adopt the budget before the end of June, or before July 1st, I should say. Right now we're scheduled for June the 8th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Sink.
No such report this evening, Mr. Chairman, but I will have an opioid settlement update for you next meeting.
Great. Sounds good. Anybody want to bring up any other matters besides myself? All right. Go ahead, Chad. Okay. I just want to bring the board up to speed with regards to communication with the school board. Jeff Ramsey, their board chairman, sent me a letter along with Dr. Eagle requesting the release of more of the $250 million school bonds that were approved. As of now, I think you told me there was roughly $11 or $12 million that they have yet to spend from the previous allocation. So I just wanted to make that known to each of you that they are looking for another allocation. They haven't asked for how much or for what.
That's correct. We do have a work session scheduled.
So we've got a ways to go before we get to that next allocation. Mr. Hovis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On that same note, the article that appeared in the Gazette several weeks ago referencing the school budget request, to my knowledge, they just last week finalized their budget request. And to my knowledge, unless Dr. Eagles received it in the last 48 hours, we do not have a hard copy of that request.
So if I may clarify,
Please.
Mr. Hovis and Mr. Chairman, we have in hand a letter that we just received earlier this week, or maybe it was Friday, with a copy of their resolution, which references what you're mentioning in terms of them finalizing their budget. We have a work session scheduled with Dr. Booker and his key staff, myself and our key staff on Thursday of this week to receive the spreadsheets and the detailed request. So all we've received at this point is the letter and the resolution. We'll have the detail, and we'll actually sit and work through that starting on Thursday.
Because until we hear a number, it's just blowing in the wind. It's not worth discussing, because we, as the entity that we try to work with our school board, we have to understand where they're going and what they're doing. And to talk about a number, it's just a number. It doesn't have any credence to us. This board in its past and this board in its current state looks at those budget requests under a microscope, and we started a path, and we've pretty much stayed on that path. We've been true to what our commitments were to education in Gaston County. But to be talking about a projected increase in ask and all that stuff without giving us the number, I think is a little premature, and I don't understand why it got such notoriety, because we don't know what it is. Not a single member of this board. And we're the 7 people who have to vote on that. And until I see that, I have great concerns as to why. I mean, if they know their number, we should have it. And as soon as you get a copy of it, I would appreciate you emailing all of us that document. And on that same subject, as far as the next ask for bond money, we need to know where it's going. We need that detailed breakdown. And they probably have it in their back pocket. But don't talk to us about asking for it until you pull that letter out and we see where it is, because we are the capital king when it comes to those funds, because we are the people who are responsible to the public for using that half-cent sales tax, which the public graciously voted to do, which is funding every penny of that $250 million of school bonds. It's not being funded by general fund. It's not being funded by any of your tax dollars. It's sales tax revenue from that sales tax increase that the voters approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Philbeck.
If I may add, when I think it's very important before this board approves any additional funding that when we sold the quarter cent, one of the things that I think the public appreciated was the fact that the school board and the commission agreed this is where the money's going to go, and it was allocated to each township. In the past, what happens, there'll be $60 million and everything's built this way. Why? And if you want to see a major disparity, just travel over to North Gaston and then travel over to these other schools, and you're going to be like, what in the world is going on? And it shouldn't be that way, because this whole county's paying that sales tax. So I would just like to put that on the radar, that what sold it to the public was last time people in Dallas saw what they were getting. People in Belmont saw what they were getting, Crowder's Mountain, and that's what brought people together. So for me, when we're looking at releasing new bonds, I think that is an approach that has worked and bring people together. If you bring $100 million to me and it's all just going to one side of the county, I'm not going to support that. I think it should go to need, without a doubt. And I do know some areas grow more than others, but there really shouldn't be that much disparity. And it definitely is. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I agree with Commissioner Hovis.
And thank you for that feedback. If I may, Mr. Chairman, just in very brief response, the project listing by township that you described is very much what we're looking for when we start that dialogue. So I'll know a lot more after we sit down with the school system staff and start going through line by line where we stand, both on the operating side and the capital side. I'm also anticipating questions that you all will have relative to the funding that the school system has received from the federal government and how that impacts their budget request and how everything should come together. So I will have more very soon.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to request that we do a joint meeting with Board of Education to get into that detailed discussion once we get close to making any kind of decision on their capital release.
Absolutely. All right, that concludes our meeting for tonight. Our next meeting will be a work session on Tuesday, May the 11th, right here in the public forum room. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Mr. Hovis makes a motion. Mr. Worley made the second. We are adjourned.